Well, this is about to have a little bit of a different tone than I had initially planned, because as I was filming this video,
Whoa, that's a shams ball.
so for those of you that haven't seen the play, this is actually what happened. You can see in Game 6 versus the Toronto Raptors, Pascal Siakam's driving in. There's a little bit of a Euro step and clocks Joel Embiid square in the face with his elbow. It's a pretty nasty hit. And for some even more context, this is when the 76ers were up by 29 points with under 4 minutes to go. So if you needed any more proof that Doc Rivers is a bum, well, there you go. And this is not a Doc Rivers video, but speaking of him, how pathetic is he? Having that press conference earlier this week where that man had an excuse for every single loss in his career, and it was actually really disrespectful because he's over there talking about,
well, y'all never gave me credit when I was winning with ass teams.
First of all, how could you say that about one of your old teams? And second of all, show some accountability, my guy. Can you imagine Erik Spoelstra ever doing something like that? That's why I don't rock with you, Doc Rivers, and you are the most overrated coach in NBA history. Hey! But like I said, this video is not about that bum Doc Rivers. So back to Joel Embiid. Jackson Frank on Twitter actually mentions that Joel Embiid had a similar injury back in March of 2018, and he actually missed 3 weeks before returning to play with a protective mask. And I actually remember that now because it was in that first round playoff series versus the Heat. He missed the first 2 games, and then he came back and they ended up beating us 4-1. And I hope y'all remember that game, man, because that's when Justice Winslow was your boy. There was actually one point where he like stepped on Embiid's mask, I remember, then he tried to break it. There was another point where he was pushed to the ground by Ben Simmons, and he was on the ground talking that trash. That's when you had point Justice. That's when Justice was better. That was good times, man. Even though that Heat team kind of sucked, it was fun back then. So obviously, if Joel Embiid misses a significant amount of time, I mean, he might miss the whole series. We haven't really heard nothing yet. The 76ers are going to have a rough time beating us, but I'm not going to lie. Even if he was healthy, I still had the Heat in 5 because y'all know the motto. But now that he potentially might miss the whole series, you know I got to go with Heat in 4. But life lesson, y'all. That's what happens when you don't take care of business. The 76ers were up 3-0. That game should have never went to a game 6, and Embiid should have never got hurt. That's why I'm so glad the Miami Heat took care of the Hawks in game 5 in Miami, so Lowry can get his rest, Jimmy can get his rest, and hopefully both of those guys are good to go for game 1 on Monday. And I got another great stat from Simon Sperling on minutes played. He said the 76ers have 3 of the top 7, Maxey, Tobias Harris, James Harden, in total minutes played this postseason. Bam Adebayo is the most on the Heat at 52nd. And everybody knows how physically demanding and rough the playoffs are, except for Trae Young, I guess. He was expecting to play like some Knicks regular season defense. I don't know, but either way, having those Philly guys with a whole other game of wear and tear on their bodies, that will actually be a big disadvantage, I think. And of course, Joel Embiid being out does take a bit of steam away from this series because I was looking forward to see 2 powerhouses match up against each other and 2 superstars like Jimmy Butler and Joel Embiid. And if you are one of those ingrates who doesn't think Jimmy Butler is a superstar, let me read you his stats from round 1. He averaged over 30 points per game, about 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals on 54% shooting and 44% from 3. Now that 3-point shooting, I still don't think it's sustainable. I don't care how long he does it. I don't really like him taking so many threes a game, but so far, Jimmy's been proving me wrong, so shout out to you. And if there was ever any doubt who the best player in that series was, because a lot of people were saying Trae Young, there was this great stat going around Twitter that shows how many points a player added versus how many points they saved on defense. And y'all can see in the very top right corner, you got Jimmy Butler. And then somewhere all the way down there in the left corner, it's a little hard to see, you got Trae Young. Yeah. He kind of sucked and the Heat defense clamped him up. That's part of the reason I really like the Heat's chances going against Philadelphia. I'm not saying that the 2 teams are similar, obviously, and Trae Young and Joel Embiid are not the same at all. Plus, Joel Embiid's a lot better. He's an MVP caliber player. But the way Erik Spoelstra devises these schemes to lock down and kind of key in on the other team's star player really goes a long way. We saw earlier this year Spoelstra sending triple teams to trap Embiid in the corner, and when you cut off the head of the snake, it's pretty easy to win a game. Unless, of course, Danny Green goes off, but we're pretty sure he's washed up now, right? I think so. Because we all know Danny Green is a random scrub Heat killer like Terrence Ross, Evan Fournier, Malik Monk. Me and my boy Will a while ago actually ranked the top 10 random scrub Heat killers in Heat history, so make sure y'all check that video out too. And for those of y'all wondering, my series Wednesdays with Will be back in the offseason, so subscribe so you don't miss that. But apparently we're not the only team with random scrub Heat killers, because I think most 76ers fans would say that Gabe Vincent is a Hall of Fame random scrub 76er killer. My guy Brady Hawk on Twitter brings up the great point that Gabe Vincent is actually leading the Heat in points per game versus Philadelphia this year. He's averaging 21 points a night on 58% shooting. And of course, that was only a couple games, but that was a good couple games, man. So I'm really excited to see Gabe Vincent in round 2. And of course, he was incredible in round 1 with his defense was just chef's kiss. You love to see it. And of course, the Heat's defense as a whole was incredible because of guys like Bam and Oladipo, and even Caleb Martin has some really great minutes. Wes Goldberg put this very interesting stat out on Twitter that basically said in the regular season, the Hawks had the #1 rated half-court offense. And in the playoffs, the Heat held them down to a rate that would have only been 25th in the regular season. Speaking of locking guys down, I'm sure a lot of y'all saw this stat on Twitter from StatMuse that said Trae Young had more turnovers than field goals made. He had 30 turnovers and only 22 times he put the ball in the hoop. In addition to that, we got another great stat from Simon Sperling who says that Trae Young has the worst three-point percentage, minimum 35 attempts, through the first 5 games of playoff series. He's tied with Russell Westbrook and Lou Dort. And that's quite interesting company for Trae Young, considering those guys are not considered shooters. I mean, Westbrook thinks he's a shooter, but he's not. I kind of actually do like those guys though, to be honest. Like Trae Young earned my respect last year in the playoffs, like what he was doing with the Knicks. I thought it was kind of cool. And again, it was the Knicks, but he still had the conference finals versus the Bucks where he was shimmying, throwing lobs off the backboard. I thought it was pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. And I've always liked Westbrook. I've always defended him, even though that's kind of impossible to do after what he did this year. He was pretty terrible. And also Lou Dort is cool, man. I wish he was on the Heat. Lou Dort would be the perfect Heat player. And also he has a badass nickname, the Dorture Chamber. I don't know if y'all knew that, but now you do. And of course, we can't finish talking about the Heat defense without mentioning PJ Tucker, who was clamping Trae Young full court press all series. You know how crazy it is that our 36, 37-year-old power forward was able to like laterally slide his feet and he's still quick enough to keep up with a guy like Trae Young? That's pretty crazy, man. And also PJ was really good offensively too this series. And Brady Hawk actually compiled some interesting stats from PJ in round 1. Apparently he shot 53% from 3, sniper gang, 64% less than 10 feet from the basket. That's that little tuck floater thing, whatever y'all want to call it. And then most importantly, he held Trae Young to 29% shooting. That is just disgusting, but I love it. And of course, all that great offense and defense led to PJ Tucker leading the playoffs in plus minus with a plus 71. So shout out to Simon Sperling again for that great fact. And that is crazy though, man, because I guarantee you, if you asked 100 NBA fans to guess who leads the playoffs in plus minus, not a single one would say PJ. I probably wouldn't even say it. So shout out to PJ Tucker, man. And another guy I got to shout out is my boy Strus Daddy. As Simon Sperling points out again, the Heat have won 11 games this year by 20 or more points. 7 of those 11 games was with Max Strus as a starter. How crazy is that? Not to mention Strus's incredible win-loss record, because they've only lost 1 time with him as a starter this year. Or 1 time they were trying, because they lost that game to Orlando at the end of the year where Oladipo balled out. Speaking of Depot, he's got to be locked into the rotation, right? Like there's no way that Spoelstra can take him out. I was going to say maybe he could take Duncan's minutes, but Duncan's only been playing like 5 minutes a game. But I'm not going to slander Duncan. I promise I wouldn't do that no more. I'm not going to slander Tyler either, but he will be facing the wall. I told y'all, Tyler's going to be facing the wall until he gets his act together. I mean, he didn't have a terrible series. Like he was 6 of 12 in the closeout game, which is fine, but he's still facing the wall, or technically facing the ball. It's actually a Haslem and Bam Adebayo signed basketball. But when Tyler gets his act together, he can turn around, and they will need him for this series. So I think he'll turn it around too, and hopefully Depot can get some minutes as well. But speaking of Oladipo, I want to shout out my favorite comment from my last video, which is from my boy Henry, who said, Oladipo. Of course, he's referencing that Eric Reed chant he does, because I don't think anybody loves Oladipo more than Eric Reed. But shout out to my boy Henry. I appreciate the comment. If y'all want to be shouted out in the next video, leave me your series predictions and your score predictions for game 1. I'll pick the closest prediction and go ahead and shout you out in the next video. Other than that, I think that's all I got to say. I've been recording for a long time because I didn't exactly have all this planned. The video kind of took a different turn than I expected. Of course, I still got my white blessed shirt on. I told y'all we rocking this shirt every single game until the Heat lose, and then we'll switch it up after that. But I do want to say before I get out of here, I hope Joel Embiid is okay. Fortunately, I haven't seen a lot of Heat Twitter celebrating that he's hurt, because of course that's a pretty disgusting thing to do. I wish he was playing. 1, just from a competitive standpoint, you want to beat someone with that 100%. But 2, also just because he's a human being and I don't want to see no one get hurt. So hopefully he can come back okay. Same with Chris Middleton and everybody else who was hurt right now. But now that's finally it. So like the video if you like, dislike if you think James Harden is good, because I definitely disagree with you. And make sure to subscribe if you're a member of Heat Nation to help your boy chase his dreams. I'll probably see y'all Monday after game 1, but who knows, because you may never see me again. Y'all find on the next video, or you won't. I'll see y'all later.
Pull up in your city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.